It's lovely to have you with us here at the wonderful Women Summit that we are holding. There's so many wonderful women out there, and we're going to be addressing to each one of you through this conversation. I think all of us have accomplished so much in our lives. We have seen more women now earning more, but there is still a but that are we taking the control of our finances as much as well? So we've taken a step ahead from our previous generation by going out there, of course, earning for ourselves. But yet again, when we come back home, we want the men in the family, like Pooja mentioned, to take care of those finances and to take financial decisions of the money that we earn. So are you also looking at something like this, which is a big mismatch? And what do you usually tell women when they think that, okay, I know how to earn, but I don't know how to manage my money?
So firstly, thank you for having me here. Money and mutual funds, I realized, is a very boring topic after you've seen someone dance on stage. And Yamni's just left, but I wish, or my husband wishes, that I would be so graceful during a fight, because I think classical dance just makes your body language so graceful. And if you had given me the chance, I would have asked her to enact how she would portray Donald Trump driving us crazy for the last 2 years in the market. But no one asked me to do that. Otherwise, I would have loved to see that. Yeah, this topic drives me crazy because 25 years of doing this, and I meet women north to south, east to west, across socioeconomic stratas, and they're smart, accomplished, working or non-working, doesn't matter, women. But when it goes to money, and I've seen this in my own family too, they quickly realize, this is not for me, ye mere bas ki baat nahi hai, and they decide to outsource it to someone else. And it drives me crazy, Sakshi, for 3 reasons. One is, and some of these stories are public in the media, but I have seen some really unpredictable stories. I've seen smart working women who are vice presidents in companies having a divorce and being left with nothing. I've seen women dealing with the loss of a loved one and processing everything that happens during the loss, but just shuddering because they don't know how to access a bank statement, or they don't know the complex terminology we put in when you put an OTP and log into your bank account. And the second thing is, I genuinely believe life is unpredictable and tricky. And of all the things you outsource, this should not be the one. But the reason that drives me the most crazy, which is what I would say is, somehow something has convinced us that we're not good at this. And I refuse to believe that a woman who can run her home, who can run her workplace, who can manage a bunch of in-laws and all the damn stakeholders she deals with in life can't select a bunch of mutual funds. It cannot be that difficult.
I know. What you're saying is right. You know, where to ask you, there was a time when all our grandmothers were always seen as somebody who would be taking all the financial decisions of the home. They would be budgeting the home the best, and that's why all the men of the family would give the money in the hands of the mothers or the wives then. So if you can manage your homes, why can't you take your own money decisions when it comes to where to invest, how to grow your money, and how to build assets?
So I find it strange, and on a lighter note, I'm assuming most of us have heard of this acronym LSD. And it's not the appropriate LSD, guys. I'm a finance CEO. It's Lakshmi Saraswati Durga, right? At some point, the gods decided that the finance, education, and defense ministry were run by women. And yet we are having this conversation. So where is the gap? I think women are outstanding savers. They are amazing budgeters of their home. The challenge is the translation from savings to investment. Because till it comes to putting money in a bank account, we can do it because I think the decision making is simple. But once you move into investment, I think 2 things come in. One is risk. And a lot of women are just naturally very scared of losing money. Paisa kho jayega to kya hoga? To which my answer is, there are ways to start. There are ways to start slowly. And ladies, even if you make a mistake, it's not like men haven't made mistakes. I mean, we had a global financial crisis in 2008 because some men made some mistakes. So,
The Lehman Brothers.
sorry, I'm not hating on men. The second is complexity. You know, when you make that decision to put money in a bank account, it's simple. The variables are less. The financial world is increasingly complex. There are lots of products, there's thousands of mutual funds. And to that, my answer is seek advice. You know, women have this lovely habit that everything has to be done by these two shoulders. I think there is a lot of help and a lot of content out there. And part of the reason I speak in boring language like dal chawal is to try and make this stuff understandable and accessible.
Absolutely. So that's what I was going to be coming to. So you did say that yes, as long as it is bank saving accounts, FDs, or maybe gold, that far we can still go. But beyond that, it is getting more difficult. So what is the first step that as women who are earning should take? Where are the first steps that they should start investing in? What is easy? And you know, what kind of financial goals should they build for themselves?
Okay, I'm going to try and break this up into maybe 3 simple steps. One is putting a habit to saving and investing. And in my book, I have this very simple framework. I call it 10, 30, 50. And I say that, you know, because you start doing the budgeting, and especially for young women with all the expenses that there is, just saving becomes very hard. So if you're in your 20s, I don't know how many people are, I'm not asking anyone their age. If you're in your 20s, start saving 10% of your post-tax salary and make sure it goes via an SIP into something. The reason I say do it via an SIP is it automates it. You know, none of us, does anyone here not pay tax? Everyone pays tax, right? Because you have to pay tax. Tax is deducted at source for salaries, salaried people. Make your investments deducted at source. So 10 in your 20s, 30% in your 30s, because then life gets serious. 50% in your 40s, because then you have to start planning towards retirement. So that's framework 1, 10, 30, 50. The second framework, which is very important for women, is before you start doing investing, make sure you've taken care of 2 things. Adequate health cover for yourselves and your family, because that burns a hole. And make sure you're aware of the kind of loans that the family has taken, because debt again burns a hole in the portfolio. Before you start to make a mountain, make sure there's no hole at the bottom of the mountain. So second, make sure you take care of health insurance and you're not racking up any kind of credit card debt. And the third is build a simple thali. I love food and it's almost lunchtime. But I say that the best way to make a portfolio is a simple Indian thali. It has dal, it has carbohydrates, it has protein, carbohydrates, and some kind of vegetables. Equity, debt, gold. That is your simple thali. How much to allocate is a much longer conversation, but if you've just done these 3, you don't need to do anything else.
Okay, so first up, have your insurance in place, ladies. We are the ones who need to protect our families. So have an adequate health insurance cover. If you don't have one, please go out and do that today. Yeah. That's the most important. Plus, apart from that, 10% of your earnings in your 20s goes towards some kind of investment. 30% in your 30s and 50% in your 40s, so that you build adequate wealth for yourselves for your retirement as well. Now, you did mention some complicated words for a lot of us, like SIP. You did say equity. You did say debt. Yeah. Let's simplify that for a lot of our audiences as well. Okay. SIP is systematic investment plan. So you put in money systematically in something. Okay. Usually in equity that you deal in, that is stocks, stock markets. That's a very difficult world for all of us to look at. But is there an easier way to start off? And usually the myth is that you need a lot of money to invest in stock markets with. Okay. So what do you want to say?
Let's simplify this again, and we'll use food analogies, because that's all I seem to do. So I talked about equity, I talked about debt, I talked about gold. Now, debt is what you use to make safe investments. Everybody needs some amount of debt in their portfolio, because life mein kabhi bhi kuch ho sakta hai. And when you need money, and you don't pull it out of the equity market, because the equity market is unpredictable. Gold is like that. All women understand gold, so I won't talk too much. But gold is like that joker in your portfolio. It does well when no one does. So most portfolios have 10% gold. Equity is what is going to give you growth, ladies. If you went and put your money in the bank today, you would earn after tax 4-5%. What is inflation in India? It's 4-5%. So by doing nothing, by the way, by doing nothing after listening to this, your money is losing value every year. Now, so you have to have equity, debt, and gold. One to create wealth, one to protect in a crisis, and one when you just need money. Okay, so that's that. Now, you're like, Radhika, there are 1,000 stocks in India. I am not a stock market expert. How should I do this? So, what's the most ordered food item in India on Zomato?
Biryani.
Biryani. Most people order biryani. Most people don't cook biryani at home because biryani is a damn hard thing to cook. It takes 18 to 20 ingredients. Mutual funds, think of mutual funds. We are your financial food court, ladies. That's all we are. We are just a food court. We provide reasonably cheap, reasonably tasty, and reasonably visible food. We provide lots of different dishes, gold dishes, equity dishes, debt dishes. Come to the food court and make the investment. Let the food court do the work for you rather than doing it yourself. And there's a myth that when you start investing, you're putting all your money in the stock market. Today, there are products for someone who wants to take this much risk, this much risk, this much risk, and that much risk. And finally, sensible financial planning is about understanding how much risk do I want to take and finding the dish in the food court. SIP, by the way, to simplify further, is like having a regular meal plan in the food court. So you can do an equity SIP, a gold SIP, a debt SIP.
Yeah. So, okay. But, on mutual funds again, the big question comes in, which mutual fund is the best? Like you said, there are thousands of schemes out there. So difficult for me to understand which is the best mutual fund. You tell me one name and I can invest in that mutual fund because you are the best person talking about mutual funds so that everybody knows where to put in their money.
Okay. So you're asking me this and I'm laughing because I come from an industry that has not made this job easy for you. So let me again try to simplify it by saying there are probably 1,000 mutual fund schemes out there. There are 40, 50 categories of funds. Ignore 90% of what we do, okay, if you want your life to be easy. And I am saying this to you. I have this concept, as I said, called Dal Chawal mutual funds, which says that there are 4 or 5 simple categories of mutual fund, which even my mother-in-law I could recommend to and things would go okay. And these are things that are all weather. They don't depend on the market. They don't depend on Trump. They don't depend on X, Y, Z. So for instance, picking a flexible cap mutual fund, this is a lot of jargon, but basically a mutual fund that invests in large, mid and small companies. This is a very nice thing that everyone can buy. Okay, flexi cap fund is something. Second thing, if you're even more conservative, there are what I call these khichdi funds. They have dal, chawal, all the assets in one meal. So a multi-asset fund or a hybrid fund. Rather than picking all these different components, they do it. That's all you need to do. A sensible flexi cap fund, a sensible hybrid fund, a sensible multi-asset fund. Most people will be taken care of with that. Everything else is chutney on top.
Okay. Now you said debt.
Okay.
By what what does debt mean for a lot of us is loans.
Yeah.
But here debt is not loans. Here debt is the fixed income investments that Radhika is pointing out to. So is it fixed deposits? Is it something like provident funds? What exactly are debt funds?
So again, debt is a tricky word, but I think most people here understand FD, right? Debt is any instrument जो आपको safe return देता है, and its return is not subject to the vagary of what Trump is tweeting tomorrow, right? By the large part. Why is debt important in your portfolio? And again, I can give you a simple thumb rule is, and I'll tell you the greatest investment mistake of my own life and why debt is important. So despite all my finance education, I started investing in 2006. And someone told me I'm very young and I should put all my money in equity. So I listened to them and I put a lot of money in equity. And everyone knows in 2008, the market fell by 50%. So you know what happened to my equity investments. My husband did the same thing. So men are equally stupid, right? And so all our investments fell. And we work in the financial services industry where anyway our profession is highly linked to the stock market. So it was horrible. And then, and this comes to where debt is, we decided to come back to India in 2009 to open a company for which we needed money and we needed capital. Now, if we had debt, we would have taken the money out of our debt investments because they're not so volatile. Because we didn't, we had to take them out of our equity investments at a 30% loss. if we had staying power, those equity investments would have done very well. So that's why I'm obsessed with debt. So everyone needs to have at least 6 months of their expenses. And the family needs to have 6 months of their expenses in some kind of debt. Now, whether you choose to do fixed deposit, PPF, liquid fund, I think is a function of who you are and what your tax situation is, because there are definitely ways to optimize this. My only suggestion is money that you need for safety, make sure it's safe and make sure it's readily available. So if you're blocking a 5-year FD which has a lot of breakage penalties, there is a problem.
Okay.
Then do small FDs that are available.
Okay.
The critical thing is not return, it's availability.
So for mutual funds, she suggested flexi cap funds and multi-asset funds that give you a lot of diversification in your portfolio. For debt, you can of course choose between FDs and PPF, but of course look at your duration. But a lot of us buy gold jewelry. Do gold jewelry count as something which is called as an investment?
Okay, so I have a slightly different take on gold, and it's a little counter. So I think you have to separate what is jewelry from what is investment. And the reason for it is, while we have jewelry, most of us don't liquidate, and I love buying jewelry as much as anyone else, but jewelry is for consumption, and most of us don't liquidate jewelry. If you are buying gold, for the sake of your portfolio, please buy financial gold, because financial gold doesn't have the problems of storage and making charges that physical gold has. And we have something called a gold fund today in India. We have silver funds, we have gold and silver funds. You can buy one of these things. It lets you hold gold and enjoy the price movement of gold without buying physical gold and worrying about its storage and security.
Okay. Now let me ask you one thing. There are two more things that a lot of us think whether we should invest in them. One is crypto. That's become so famous nowadays, and everybody wants to know whether crypto creates massive amount of wealth.
Okay.
What do you have to say on that?
Don't buy crypto. It's like the 3-word answer. So I have no problem with crypto. I have a problem with crypto in India, and I'll tell you why. I'm from Delhi, and a few years ago, I had an uncle who told me he wanted to buy crypto. And I said, why do you want to buy crypto? He said, because सामने वाले घर के अंकल ने crypto में 4 गुना पैसे बनाए हैं. I said, आपको समझ भी आ रहा है कि वो why is it happening? And he didn't. So don't buy things you don't understand. Secondly, and more importantly, there is no regulatory and tax framework for crypto in India today. If you were having this conversation and I was sitting on a US stage, I may have had a different answer. But in India, why would you invest when you have no resort to go to if something goes wrong? Don't buy crypto in India.
Don't buy crypto. You know, a lot of women also think when we read so much about that how the most priciest of handbags sell out for much more value in the secondary markets. We think that buying a Chanel bag or an Hermes bag would be the ultimate investment that we should plan for. So what is your thought on that?
Okay, I love my handbags too, right? But again, the same point I made about gold jewelry, I separate things that are physical investments from financial investments. By the way, I think your primary house is also a physical investment, because you don't go value your house every day and you don't want to sell your house in a crisis. Genuinely, one thing that people should place a real premium on is access to money when I need it, right? By the way, the greatest thing, my mother-in-law made this statement about my profession, and she's not a financially savvy woman, but she made the greatest statement. She said, the best thing about mutual funds is what? Paisa chahiye, 2 दिन में मिल जाता है. So I think, and she says, that gives you, Radhika, dignity of money. She said, when I have a crisis, I don't need to go beg a bank manager. I don't need to go wait for a policy to mature. And she says, my money is accessible to me in a dignified way. So I think being able to access, consider your handbag's value doubling as winning a jackpot. But you can't bet on winning a jackpot, right?
Okay. Now you did talk about houses. So how many of women should actually look at real estate as an investment? Should they really look at buying a house or a property in their names?
So again, I'm going to try and separate it. Home ownership in India is across the world. We are a country that says roti, kapda, makan. Nobody says roti, kapda, mutual fund, right? As much as I would like to. Makan is a very emotional thing in India. And I think your residential home is deeply emotional, okay? If you find value in buying a home, please buy a home. By the way, I have a home and I'm a financial person. Life can't be lived off a spreadsheet. Finally, you can't live in a mutual fund, right? If you don't see emotional value in buying a home, don't buy a home. And you can take an EMI to buy a home, but just make sure that the debt of the EMI doesn't suffocate your life. So that's the part about primary real estate. But that home is not an investment. Don't think of it as an investment. It's a home. Real estate beyond where you live is an investment, and you have to measure it on a financial spreadsheet. I find that, and I'm not against real estate, with real estate, so there was an article, I don't know which paper said it, that Amitabh Bachchan bought a plot in 2001 and he sold it in 2020, and look, he made 2 times return. People were celebrating it. 2 times return over 20 years, if a mutual fund made that, you would. So look at things through the comparable lens of a financial spreadsheet. Also, as you're getting older, and this is Delhi NCR, I know so much of the family, by the way, that has real estate investments, and it's asset rich but cash poor. You want money to finally be able to do work for you. You don't want to have the stress of being able to rent it, tenant nahi hai, building purani ho gayi hai, how do I sell it? So just think through this carefully. There are great financial vehicles to get real estate exposure today, like real estate investment trusts. Conversation for another day.
Okay, Radhika, a lot of people would now agree that, investing for your future, building your future assets is very important, as important for women as is for the men in the family. But a lot of us don't know how much to really target, how much wealth is enough to build and plan for. And a lot of us also think that you need a lot of money to start off with to be able to reach a certain goal. So first up, help us understand, should we plan for a 1 crore goal? Should we plan for a 10 crore goal? There are also debates about that you will need 40 crores by the time you retire at 60. So how much is enough, and how do we plan with even a small 20,000 rupee SIP, like you're saying, or a 30,000 rupee that you can set off for your investments on an early age?
So let me first relax everyone. You do not need 40 crores to retire. I get worried about these conversations because once you start to hear that you need 40 crores to retire, you are like, this exercise is hopeless. I won't even spend 100 rupees investing. So you don't need 40 crores to retire. And I kind of help you think about a framework for what you need to retire in a bit. But the first thing I would say is today, to start saving and investing, you need to do 100 rupees, okay? That is the minimum investment that most mutual funds accept. Most of us spend more than 200 rupees buying popcorn at PVR.
So you can start investing in a mutual fund for as low as
100 rupees. You can start investing in a mutual fund for as low as 100 rupees. So nobody sitting here, nobody actually has an excuse not to invest. Okay, nobody has an excuse not to invest. So let me start there. And I genuinely think the reason, if I go back to that 10% point I made in your 20s, a lot of parents tell me, oh, you're only telling my kid to invest 10% of their income in, your 20s. Investing is a habit. It's about discipline. Once you get into the discipline of saving and investing regularly, your mind will start working itself and you will start increasing that number. So this is a habit. And it takes a small amount, and that's why I highly recommend that post-tax income formula. Now, how much do you need to retire? It really depends. But in general, the way you would do this math is, if you're sitting in your 40s and 50s, think about your expense beyond a home that you would need today. If you didn't have a job today, think about your expense and factor in about 12% inflation, because there is lifestyle inflation, and hopefully you have got health.
Let's take
covered.
a lakh rupee of investment every month. So 12 lakhs in a year everybody spends.
And then you factor in, okay, I'm not going to do the math in the head, but there's a very good retirement calculator on Edelweiss MF website, so you can go do that. But it actually does this. It factors in the kind of money you need. It factors in inflation, because our lifestyle also increases, and it factors in about 80, 85 lifestyle. And then you'll come to a retirement number. Like in Mumbai, I think if someone has 5 to 7 crores, and Mumbai is an expensive city, and they have a paid up home, they will retire comfortably.
Oh, that's 5 to 7 crores is what you start.
I told a family member who lives in Delhi NCR, again, she has a fully paid up home, and I said, and she has kids. that are not earning, right? So that makes things more complicated. I said if you have a 7 to 8 CR portfolio, I would consider you in good shape at 60.
Fantastic. So we'll end that conversation here. I'm sure there'll be so many more conversations and questions that can draw around this. But at least it is a starting point for all the women who have not yet started on their financial journey. So thank you so much, Radhika, for sharing with us all those secrets of how to start building on for your financial investments and for your financial goals.
You made
Always
me
a pleasure.
condense a 20-year career and a 300-page book in 20 minutes. Very impressive.
Yeah, you can definitely go ahead and watch and read all of her books that she simplified as far as personal finance is concerned, Mango Millionaire and Limitless. So all of those books are out there. You can definitely read on to understand more about personal finance. But thank you so much. Warm round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, for Radhika Gupta.